and you just ask me a question.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being patient with the technical difficulties. If you've been doing my Pass the Mics in the past, normally I do them on Instagram, but I'm trying to move to a different platform to just allow people from other places that may not have IG accounts, even though I don't know why people wouldn't want an IG account, be able to access. So this gives, people from Facebook a chance to watch, people, other bloggers or whatever. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Today so normally I do my Pass the Mics on the third Wednesday of the month, the third or fourth, but I wanted to skew a little bit because since Sunday was Mother's Day, I thought this would be a great time to have my mother come and hang out for a little bit. We're social distancing because she got cooties. Just kidding, Mom. So thank you, Mommy, for agreeing to do this. I only had to torment you for like 2 weeks, which is less than what I thought I'd have to do. So I guess to get you a little comfy, I'm gonna do a little icebreaker.
Okay.
All right. Number one, what is the name of my chronic illness?
Uh, MG or myasthenia gravis.
Are you sure? You sounded questionable.
Well, I never really say the whole name when I refer to it, so it's kind of a long name. So I was trying to make sure I was saying it correctly because that's not normally how I refer to it. But for those who wouldn't know what MG was, I thought I would say the whole name.
Okay. And can you give a definition of what MG is?
I do know it is autoimmune disease. I know that it affects the your muscles, and you have there's I guess opposite of MG where they have involuntary movement. You actually have more of a muscle shutdown. I guess is the best way for me to describe it. How does that?
Okay.
Was that it?
Sure, except for you said the opposite of MG. You mean the opposite of MS.
I'm sorry, opposite of MS. Yes.
I feel you. I got you. And so, one of the questions, so I asked my Instagram following what they wanted me to ask you, and someone said, "Is it true that I am adopted?"
That's something that will only be disclosed on my deathbed. So I'm so sorry, I will not be able to answer that question tonight.
And someone else said, "What's it like being my mom?"
um, Actually, it's pretty cool being your mom. We have our moments, but all in all, I've enjoyed being your mom. Um, yeah, I guess after being around you so long, I just understand all of your quirks and your kinks. So I'm used to it.
Anywho, all right, that's enough breaking the ice. So let's get into it. I brought my mom here just to give a little perspective on what it's like to be the parent of someone with a chronic illness. And so, if you read my latest blog post, did you, Mom?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Did you read my latest blog post?
I have not.
Well, this week's blog post talked about just different tips and hacks for parents of children with chronic illnesses. So while I'm not necessarily a child per se, like by age, I am someone's child, yours. So I thought this was a great time to just kind of get your perspective on like my journey because you've pretty much been here with me for the past 4 years. So, all right, let's get smack dab into it, shall we?
Yes, let's go right on ahead and get in it.
All right. So think back to the day I got diagnosed, because you came with me to the neurologist. How did you feel at that moment?
Um, what moment? Like when we were there, or
However you want to answer it. When we were there, as we were walking out, like I guess that day, the moments leading up to it, the moment after.
um, I think probably the best way to describe what I was feeling during the whole process would have been, um, helpless, powerless, as your mom always being able to fix or, make things better. That was not a situation where I was able to step in and do that. So I think I felt powerless. And as a result of that, the day we went to the doctor, I think that sort of um, played out in anger. Um, One, hearing the final or the confirmed diagnosis, one, and then the doctor that you had, I did not like him at all, and I did not like the way he delivered the information. So it was very easy for me to, that energy, that powerless feeling that I had shifted into anger, um, more or less directed towards him at that particular time.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I think power is probably the best way to describe how I felt throughout it.
said anger.
Powerless, but I think it turned into anger. Yeah, and because I can't do anything, so now it has to come out in emotion, and I think the emotion that I probably most exemplified was anger, because even trying to, um, other than dealing with you, of course, I'm trying to tell you what I don't know, which is everything is going to be fine. So yeah, it was powerless and angry.
Okay. And has that changed like as I've progressed, or what's been, I guess, your, because I know I have my own range of emotions, but how has your emotions changed, I guess, as we've been on this journey?
Um, I think now I've grown into a place of acceptance, and watching you over the years as you have dealt with it from your end and seeing you come back to life has made it a lot better for everyone, because those were really hard years, knowing um, as all the things you like to do, you were very active. You like to do lots of things, and to see you no longer be doing the things you want to do, as well as being sick, those first 6 to 8 months, it was a very trying time. So I think now I don't worry about you as much, because I feel like you're beginning to own your disease, and you are managing it very well. I mean, sometimes when you do things that I may not agree with or think may be too much, I get a little concerned, but I don't think I express it as much as I used to. I think in the beginning, I was almost treating you like a child again, in terms of my wanting to protect you and keep you safe. I don't feel the need to do that as much now.
So do you feel like me being diagnosed gave you different fears and concerns for me beyond just regular mother parenting concerns, or how did my diagnosis, I guess, give you more things to worry about, or do you still have more things to worry about in terms of like my future or just my quality of life, or I don't know, what do parents think about?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you always, as a parent, you always think about, your kids and them reaching their aspirations and dreams, and um, wanting that for them. I don't know that I worry so much that you won't do your best to fulfill the things that you want to do, because that's your personality. Um, and I think probably over this past year, I probably don't think as much about um, your illness as I did in the beginning. I feel like it's all just a part of you now because it's I think before it was we were in that place of the unknown and you didn't know what was going to happen. And I believe during the early parts of your diagnosis, we were going to different support groups and different things like that. So just hearing other people's stories, and then a lot of those people were older people who were um, out definitely not in your age group. So then that was kind of hard to even get an idea of what that would look like for you because you were diagnosed at a young age, which is not common. Or I won't say common, but as common. It's normally a diagnosis that is given to someone, years older than you. So I thought about it, I think, for the first couple of years as we were learning about it, but I don't think about it as much now. In terms of how if it's going to affect you living your life as normal as you possibly, as you normally would. So,
Okay. Let's see, what else do I have for you? So, what's been the most difficult part having a child with a chronic illness?
um, so I think, like you mentioned in the beginning, because you were diagnosed young, but when you were diagnosed, you were living on your own, so you were no longer under my care. I think what the hardest part for me actually was um, having to forgive myself because your illness and signs of your illness actually were showing up as you were growing up, but we didn't know what it was. So I
J'accuse.
I discounted, some of the things that you were saying to me at the time, or I didn't look at them as part of a huge illness. I may have thought you were just trying to get out of doing things or not just being lazy, not necessarily wanting to participate because it wasn't something that you actually liked. So when I think about those days and those instances, um, I feel bad. So I think that was the hardest part for me was it was some guilt. There was some guilt in it for me because once I realized that you really were sick, I mean, that was just a horrifying feeling for a parent to feel like your child is telling you something and you're kind of blowing it off like, oh, will you please just stop and come on. So that was the hardest part for me, knowing that I subjected you to things that actually were hurting you.
Ooh, yes, flashback to Camp Wabana. You made me go to summer camp for a week, and I was miserable the entire time. The entire time.
Sit on the thing right there and be quiet. Your brother's in here.
I know, you keep turning to the side. Who else would you be turning to? Okay.
Mm-mm.
Do you think you could have handled this if I had been diagnosed as a kid?
Um, I believe with the support system that I had in place, when you were coming up, I definitely would have gotten through it. Um, I don't know. I mean, back then well, it all depends on how old, well, when I had you, I'm not sure when you would have gotten diagnosed, but let's just say if you had been between the ages of, I guess, 10 and 15, I don't know. I think during those years, I definitely was a lot more self serving. So I'm not really sure how, as a parent, I may have, you know, felt sorry for myself or felt burdened. I mean, it's really hard for me to say because it wasn't my situation, but I know I don't have the same mindset that I have now. And when I think back to what I was doing during those years, I definitely um, was a lot more into myself, and I could be because I did have the support system that I had. So I would like to hope, because I've always been an overprotective mom outside of this, that if I'd have learned that something was happening to you on that level, that I would have definitely, jumped in and been just as overprotective about that situation as I've been about other situations. But it's just really hard to say. It's hard to say. I would like to hope I would have, though. But I know that I was of a different mindset at that time too. So I also have to be honest about that.
Right. Yeah, 'cause she was a wild girl. um. So, what changes have you noticed in me? I guess since my diagnosis, or from the time that I've been diagnosed, or even before I was diagnosed, to the person I am now.
Um, so I think that from the time you were diagnosed to now, clearly, I mean, I know you went through a range. I mean, you went through, sadness, depression. You went through a whole range of things, would be natural if someone was given a life sentence like that. Um, so I've seen you come alive again. I've seen you, just begin to learn or use your creativity to now bring you more fulfillment. Whereas before, you would use activities. You did a lot more activities. You were gone. You traveled. You did a lot of things like that. More socializing and things of that nature. Whereas now, you have honed in on your creative side and you're actually using it, to promote awareness for your illness, which I'm very proud of you, in that regard, because you're turning what was, something very painful into something very powerful. You're gaining power from it, and you're empowering others to themselves do the same thing if they find themselves in the situation of being told that, hey, you're going to have to deal with this situation for the rest of your life, and it's a very uncomfortable situation. So I feel like you have not only, you've owned it, and now you're living it, and you're trying to help others do the same thing. So I've that's what I've seen you, or how I've seen you progress in these last 4 years. And I know when it first started, that was the last thing you ever wanted to do. You didn't want people to call you. You didn't want to read a magazine. You didn't want to join a group. You didn't want to do any of that stuff. You had just pretty much given up. So you've come a long way.
Okay. Um. So even though I was grown, we both know that you are a classic helicopter mom who's all up in the Kool-Aid. And I don't even like Kool-Aid, so it's not being served here. Um, how has me having an illness changed the way you've had to parent? And not parent in terms of, oh, I necessarily need my mommy, but to go from being completely independent to being on my own to then having this illness that kind of did rob me a little bit of my independence. And like, how did you approach that? What was your methodology for still respecting me as an adult, but knowing that you were needed? Like, how was that balance for you, or that struggle for you as a mom?
Well, you know that eh, around the time when that happened, there was transition already, taking place, maybe like a month before all that had happened. You had already sort of said, Mom, I need, us to kind of redefine the relationship that we had. Because I'm gonna say, I'll just say, for lack of a better term, you were feeling sort of smothered, maybe.
Yeah.
And so, and like less than 6 weeks later, all of this began. So it was really kind of hard because we had just had the conversation about not over overdoing it, but then finding out that you're sick and then not really knowing how to position myself. So I think, had you not had that conversation with me prior to everything happening, I probably would have been over the top. But I think because you had the conversation with me prior to it happening, and I couldn't confuse it with she's only saying these things or pushing me away because she's sick. Um, so that had already been established. So I guess I just kind of played off of you. Um, and I probably was my best being there for you that I've probably ever been in my whole life because I wasn't necessarily there in voice. And a lot of times as mothers, we're always there in voice, and sometimes we aren't necessarily needed in voice, we're just needed in presence. And I think establishing that with me prior to this coming into play, I was able to play that position a lot better than I would have if that hadn't happened. I think I would have been overburdened and probably made you even more sick than you were. Maybe.
I
I
agree.
don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know how much the conversation was a pothole for you to overcome, but I could just imagine if the conversation didn't happen, you probably would have moved in. I'd be on disability.
Yeah.
We would have bought a van and a wheelchair. Like it just would have been a thing. Like,
Yeah.
um, it's
Yeah, it
funny.
definitely would have been. That's why I say it was a blessing in disguise. And of course, when you said it, I didn't like it. And but it couldn't have come at a better time. Couldn't have come at a better time because I could only fight it outwardly with you for so long because there was a much bigger matter at hand. So there really wasn't even time for me to wallow in my feelings and take you back and forth with it. I just had to roll with it. And like I said, I feel like I was probably the best me being there for you because otherwise, I would have had a lot to say, lots of questions, lots of pushback, you know, all that. So yeah.
I agree. Now, thankfully, I was, on my own. But do you think that you could have handled me at peak illness and your son, who, is a handful in himself, like that balance between. So, for those who don't know, my brother and I are 21 years apart. Hi, Pipey. So, um, she has never really had to parent us at the same time. Like, I pretty much was grown and on my own, and then she had him, and so he's getting her all to himself for the most part as well. But if we had been closer in age, let's say 2 to 3 years apart, how do you think you could have balanced the needs of um, a child that has a chronic illness while not ignoring your other children or your son, and also not, you know, um, ignoring your other, requirements like going to work and, just balancing it all as a single mom?
And you're saying if I'd had y'all closer together and you
Yeah.
gotten diagnosed as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
mm, well, like I said, I had a great support system in raising you, so I think that I would have definitely still had that in place. Um, I think that I'm no stranger, in our family history, and I have an aunt actually who has dedicated her whole life to taking care of, one of her children. So the example was, lived before me. I probably would have, um, I guess, took a lesson from all of that and hopefully would have incorporated it into my day to day. My mom has always been in my corner. Um, I know she would have been there 100%. Um, I mean, I don't know how I would have handled it. I know we would have gotten through it, and I don't know that there ever would have been a time where you wouldn't have felt slighted because you've always felt slighted since I had your brother before before this even came into play. But I think that Elisha would have, as he does now. He cares for you, and you're his biggest. He's your biggest fan. So I don't think it would have ever really been a problem with him feeling like you were getting more attention than he was. I think that he would have been part of that support for me, and I think we would have been just fine. I mean, but now if he would have been sick and you would have been the other one, I don't know. I don't know how that would have played out.
What?
But yeah, between how it is now, you being the one who was ill and him, me having him, I think that he would have been a part of the support system, and I think we would have been fine.
Okay.
What do you? How do you? What do you think?
I
Do you think I've been a great mom?
I mean, of course, I think you would have did what you had to do, but I also think you have control issues. So I don't think that you would have trusted anyone to care for me besides you. You may have
Well,
sent Pipey somewhere to be cared for while you cared for me. Um, but I don't think you would not sending him away to live with another family, but like, hey, he needs to stay here for the weekend so that I can do this for morgue or X, Y, and Z. I don't think you would have outside of maybe grandma and then my aunt Cindy. I don't think that you would have necessarily trusted anyone to care for me the way that you cared for me, the way that you think that no one can care for Pipey, the way that you care for Pipey but me.
well, when I say support system, I don't necessarily mean that I wouldn't have, well, let's just get this, let's just put this out there. I wouldn't have sent either of my kids anywhere to live with anyone
I said not live.
full time. They would have been, my kids would have been with me always under all circumstances. However, I believe that because I did have the support system, when I say that, like you say, yes, between Ma and Cindy, who is actually Elisha's godmother. I mean, that's just how much support she's always given me as well. Um, you're right. I think I still would have had enough time and enough support to be able to get away when I needed to get away, when things maybe got overwhelming, or people to step in when things seemed to be overwhelming. But I don't think it would have ever been a time when I would have stepped away or asked someone else to do it for me, or um, I mean, like you say, it probably would have been those two, would have been the only two that I would have ever took time away to leave you with them in order for me to go run an errand or go to a doctor's appointment or do other things that were necessary for me to do. I probably just would have, and not that I had a huge, huge social life to begin with, but I mean, I think that would have been the only thing that would have been different. I wouldn't have been away from home as much as I had been without that restriction placed on my life. But no, I think we would have been fine. And I don't really think it would have ever been a time when, um, if that was the case, that Elisha would have, I think he would have been a different child altogether. I don't think that he would be and act the way that he does now, knowing that your condition was what it was and what it required for us to care for you. I think he would have been a different child as well.
Is he still in the room? We had a
Mm-hmm.
request to get him on screen.
Huh?
We had a request to get him on screen.
Can you get on screen, please, son?
Stand behind Mama. Hi, Elish.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
So people just wanted to see your
Here.
face
Huh?
and see the face to the name Pipey. Do you have anything you want to say or weigh in on this combo?
Well, you know what? I still would have a bit of a playful personality, Mommy. You can't deny it. It's part of my DNA.
Well, I didn't say you wouldn't be playful. I just said you wouldn't be as, that other word that we use sometimes, the A word.
Full of antics.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like that one. As he dances away.
yeah.
That's all, folks.
All right. Well, happy early birthday, everyone. Pipey will be 10 tomorrow. 10 years of anarchy.
Yes, he will. 10 years.
Ooh, that.
All right, Mama. Well, I only have one more question for you or statement. Or do you have any advice for, moms with children who have chronic illnesses or little tidbits or words of encouragement that you want to leave them with?
Mm-hmm. That's a hard question for me because you weren't diagnosed when you were a little girl, but I guess, like I said, for me, it's hard sometimes to think about and remember times when your illness was showing and I was not aware and I did not know or recognize or could see. So I would say to parents, be forgiving of yourself because there may be some instances that you're going to recall or things that you are going to overlook um, until, the sad day and time that this thing becomes a reality and has a name. And there'll be things that will have happened along the way that can sometimes haunt you. But you have to be forgiving. If you know you're loving your kids and you know you're giving them everything and you're doing the best you can do to be the best mom to them, that's all you can do. And you can't do any more than that. And just be there, dude, and have your feelings. Don't try to be this super person and not take care of yourself as well. I mean, there were plenty of days when I would talk you down the phone and then I would get off the phone and I would just have my own bawling session, but I couldn't do that on the phone with you. And so there'll be moments like that as well, but just realize that we're human too. You're human too. And, you also have to care for yourself. Caregivers on any level, in any shape, form, or fashion for any period of time need to always remember themselves. Their mental and emotional and physical health is just as much a part of what's happening with your child as what's happening with your child, and you have to take care of those matters as well.
I love it. Tell the boy to pipe down.
Mm-hmm. What'd you say?
I said, tell the boy to pipe down. No pun intended.
Wow. So yeah, that would be my advice. I mean, and that's just because I don't have any other. I can't really say I have experience in mothering you as a child with a chronic illness. I didn't have to mother you on that level.
Oh, someone did. I have a couple more questions. Let's see. Someone did ask, what were you first thinking when I was diagnosed? How did you handle it? Someone asked, did you know I was at risk for getting MG, that you were a carrier?
No, did not. I did not. Although we do have autoimmune issues running through one side of my family. Um, I had never heard of MG. So if someone would have said if they would have told me you had sarcoidosis, which is the autoimmune disease that I have, and my mom also has it, and her mom also has it, had it. So if someone had told me you had that, then it would have been like, oh, well, yeah. I mean, I would not have been surprised. But to say you have something that not only I've never heard of, but it's not even common amongst, most people don't know what it is when you tell them. They always want to say, you mean MG? I mean, MS, So I would have never thought that I was carrying anything that I was going to give you, other than maybe the sarcoid. But at that time, and even now, they tell us that it's not hereditary. So, no, I did not know that I was a carrier. And I'm not claiming to be a carrier right now.
Someone else asks, do you have any tips for knowing what to say?
To say to
I'm
what
guessing
someone who,
to someone with an illness.
um, I guess I would depend on what I guess in the beginning stage, of course, you understand that the person is going to feel everything they're going to feel, and sometimes it's not a lot you can say, and sometimes it doesn't even make sense to say anything because they're not going to hear you. Um, they're going through their emotions about whatever it is that they're thinking and dealing with. So sometimes you just listen. And, maybe you say, well, I know you feel that way today, but you may not always feel that way. And you have to give them that time and that space for them to digest all that they have just been told, and all that they've been told they're going to have to deal with. But at some point, you start trying to help them out of that space. I know for you, a few months after you were diagnosed, maybe about 2 months after you were diagnosed, I began talking to you about how your illness, you embracing your illness could turn into something that could help someone else. And even though you didn't want to hear it then, um, I continue to tell you that because I wanted that to play in your head just as much as whatever you were telling yourself. So it's not, I think for different people, it'll be different things based on who they are and their personalities and what you feel how you feel they can use their gifts and talents to be able to turn it into something good. And that's what I would say, at some point, and let them feel what they feel originally. And then at some point, just start speaking to how whatever it is that they're good at have to offer the world. Their hopes, dreams, beliefs, whatever it is, you start to try to point them in the direction of how having this illness can also play a role and help other people as they continue to pursue their life, their dreams by sharing what's happened to them, and no longer hating what's happened to them, but embracing it and then sharing with the world how they've been able to overcome and continue to live a normal life. But of course, that's not what people want to hear when they're first going through it. And I don't think that that's the time that you just don't come out the gate with that. You have to give the person time to feel what they feel.
Agreed and well said. And then the last question slash comment here is Morgan your favorite child?
That is something else that I will only be revealing on my deathbed. I'm sorry to say.
Whatever, Mom. Well, thank you, Mama Bear, for doing this. I know how much you hate being on camera. You guys, I got cussed out on Mother's Day because I made her a Facebook account. So this, was clearly definitely out of her realm as well. But I appreciate you. I'm gonna have you on again. I originally envisioned us doing this on the couch, like Jada Pinkett and Willow and Big Mama, like Red Table, but I don't have a red table, but something similar. So maybe one day, me, you, and Granny can chop it up over. What do we all like to drink? I don't know.
Well, I will say that both my children are my favorite.
Why you got ruin the moment? Everyone knows I'm your
easier
favorite.
to raise, which was you, and the other is he's easier to. I don't know. I guess he's just fun. Yeah, I don't even have anything for Pipe. Pipe is just Pipe.
You should have just left it because now you don't have anything. He's easier.
But I couldn't imagine life without him. But both of you, both of you are my favorite. You're my favorite daughter, and he's my favorite son.
Pish posh. So we have to wait another 11 years for you to have a third to break this tie?
No. It's done. Favorite daughter, favorite son. Who could ask for anything more?
Yeah. All right, Mama. Well, thank you for hanging with us ill people.
Well, definitely. I had a great time, and hopefully someone got something out of it, and I don't have to be back anytime soon.
What else? You know you love it.
No, it was okay. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And anything for you, dear child. Anything for you.
You guys have marked it. It is 8 p.m. Wednesday, May 13th. And she said anything for me. Write it down. Note it. I'm cashing in. All right. Thanks, guys. I see you guys in the chat. I see we had some standard viewers. I appreciate you guys coming over for